Really, Philadelphia went from 2 years ago, oh my God, to now they're as fun to talk about as anybody. And we get a chance to bring in Bob Cooney, Philadelphia Daily News. So, Bob, it's funny what a difference a couple of years makes. Most recently, let's start with that. J.J. Redick, 1 year at $23 million. Talk about how this came together and how important that 1 year term is in this deal.
Yeah, it really works out well for the Sixers, Casey, in that they needed obviously to boost their salaries. They had to get somewhere close to the cap floor. And, you know, many people around here, they know the Sixers need shooting, and the talk around here was J.J. Redick, but 3-4 years at $18 million, was that too much? So Brian Colangelo went another way. He said, well, let's look at him for a year. Let's sign him for $23 million for 1 year, see how he fits with the system. Maybe if it works, then we can revisit it. Or maybe we see exactly the model that he is and how it benefits a Joel Embiid, a Ben Simmons, a Markelle Fultz. And then maybe they go somewhere else to try to find a J.J. Redick clone, maybe next year a younger version of it. But they did that. It looks like they're going to do Amir Johnson for $11 million. They boosted their salaries to get close to the floor now, and they have some interesting pieces. And it's going to be fun to see how Brett Brown puts all this together.
And you think about now the fact that could bring Sarge off the bench if you want. You got Okafor and Holmes and others there. I want to ask you about this because what you got to love of the smarts of the two deals, Bob, is forget just the money, and I understand the $34 million, but you bring in two guys who go to work. They're the first guy there, last guy to leave. That's rhetoric for most. These two guys fit that bill. How much did that and the character go towards the reasoning for both players around these kids?
Now, it's something that's sorely needed here in Philadelphia. I mean, you have babies in this locker room, and they've tried through the years. They brought in Elton Brand, but he was a guy that wasn't playing all that much. They brought in a Carl Landry, but he was also a guy that wasn't playing all that much and also said, I'm not a leader type. I just come and take care of myself. They've been trying. Gerald Henderson was here last year, but they decided not to bring him back at his $9 million. They've been trying to get veteran types to teach these kids the rigors of the NBA, the day-to-day process of getting better, but guys that also could contribute to the team. And it looks like now with Johnson and Redick, you have two guys that can do that. Both of them are widely admired for the way they handle themselves, the way they prepare for an NBA season, and the way they get through the grind of the season. And it's going to be very beneficial for these young players to see that up close.
Bob, one more for you. There's money left. I mean, it's unbelievable, but there is money left. So when you look at where they are, clearly it looks like they're already 8 deep. Where do they go? You hate to say you spend it just because you have to spend it, but if they do have to, what do they look for here with those finances?
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, obviously you got to pay the rookies. I have them somewhere around, this is $23 million still under the cap floor. That's just the cap floor. So I don't know. Do they look to bring in another veteran, another shooter? I think they could use another shooter. I've bantered about Ersan Ilyasova. I thought bringing him back would be a really good fit for them. Or do they kind of just play this out and do what they've done in years past and take on salary, whether it be at the trade deadline or somewhere towards the end of the season just to get to the cap floor? That remains to be seen. But if I were them, I would still look for another shooter in the free agent market.
All right, Bob, appreciate it. Keep the cell phone handy. Thanks so much for the knowledge.
You got it, Kate. Thanks.
We continue to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. I love saying that.
Yes.
I mean, we sat here, and it was like you're sitting and your hands are over your head. All of a sudden, this is an exciting team to talk about.
It really is. It really is, Casey. And here's why. I go back to when Golden State and Steph Curry was young. They had Barbosa and they had Jared Jack. They had two savvy vets around Steph to help him grow. So when you bring in a guy like J.J. Redick, he's going to be great in the locker room. He's going to be great on the road and showing those guys how to be professional. And now as Embiid and the rest of those guys and Folk and Simmons figure out how do they create space, you have to have shot making on the floor. If you don't have shot making on the floor, the defense shrinks. And now those guys are taking long jump shots. And we know right now they're still learning to do that. So anytime you can have extra spacing on the floor, find more shooting to put around Embiid so he can operate, I think that's the right thing to do for Philadelphia.
Well, the one thing is I think they still need some more veterans on the bench to help them as well. A guy I would look at who's been there that knows him is maybe a Lou Williams. If he's not wanted out there in the Clipperland, they can put him on the instant offense, come off the bench. So when the nights that they're struggling, here's a guy that can come in and score. But I went to 3 of the games last year. It was exciting. Everybody's pumped up in there. And I think people are even more excited now than the fact that you added all these other players, but you had 2 veteran players that can help them.
I mean, look, Okafor showed some things. He's a guy who's filling into a role. Saric was a top 3 rookie. These guys are going to come off the bench.
Which is good. It gives you depth.
How about that?
And it takes so much pressure off the young guys that try to feel they have to do so much right away.
And the one thing is that's where those guys got to understand. Even if you come off the bench, you have an integral part like the Iguodala's, like the Livingston. You can't look at it, I'm coming off the bench and I'm not a starter.
Right.
It's about winning. And that's what Okafor, and I think Sarge's got it. Okafor now's got to say, it's about winning, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help this team win.
All right, let's talk about how much money Philadelphia has left, because there is certainly a large amount that they've spent, Eric, right? But there's a floor coming. So talk about that. Is the number maybe smaller than where Bob was looking at? How much money do they have left?
Well, I have them, and it's unofficial. We don't know until the contracts come in, but I have them at about $83 million. And so they're under the cap by about 16, which is what they can go spend. And we kind of talked a little bit. They could spend some of that on Robert Covington to give him restructure his deal. But the floor is a very specific thing where you have to get to 89. So you're about $6 million short of that, but you don't have to get to the floor. What happens if you don't is at the end of the season, you cut a check. You cut a check for the difference. In this case, let's say it's $6 million, and it goes to your players on the roster as a bonus. So I don't think
it's not a bad deal.
I don't think Joel Embiid is going to be upset if they don't spend that extra bit of money and he gets a nice little check. It's the process, right? So.
Well, plus, I don't know who they're going to spend it on to play. You got McConnell over there. Holmes is a guy that people don't watch this team with the talent. This is an exciting team, DZ.
They're pretty,
Exciting team, but P, I'm glad you explained to a lot of people that understand now what the floor is. And if you don't spend that money, they thought it was a penalty, but it actually goes back to the players on the roster.
Right. It's free money for, like, they could spend it on a player. They're going to have to spend it no matter what. That's the key. Okay? Would you rather spend it on a free agent you don't need, or would you rather reward these kids that $6 million, or use it as flexibility? Because you might be able to, mid-season, there might be a trade where you get a chance to take on somebody and get another asset. That's how Sam Hinkie built this thing, right? You could still continue that part of the process. There's a lot of flexibility to have that kind of space. So you don't have to get there. They're about $6 million under. We still don't know. And also, I think they're about 15 players. I don't know yet if maybe it's 14. Unless they make a trade, I don't even know if there's room on that roster for anybody else.